Welcome to a brand new episode of DC and RC. I'm UFC double champ, former UFC double champ Daniel Cormier. That is my friend, Pro Bowler and Super Bowl winning Ryan Clark.
What up,
RC, how you
brother?
doing today, my friend? Look, hey, bro, all it took was one person on Twitter to go, Ryan, don't dress down because of DC for you to show back up in your Sunday's best, huh? That's how we doing this?
No, bro, listen, that wasn't even it, man. Last show, I was going to be late. I respect your time so much as a two-division champion or former no, you know what? You're never a former division champ as the two-division champion. And and so I said, you know what? I wanted to be on time last week, but this helps me because I can leave straight from here and go to NFL Live, and I don't have to miss a beat. I can even stop and get me a chai tea latte. You know what I'm saying?
What a show NFL Live is. I'm just a little bit tired of you always patting yourself on the back with your great, my NFL Live, Dan Orlovsky, my two favorite Daniels, all this other stuff. It gets ridiculous, Ryan. It gets ridiculous. But guys, we got a show to do. I'm not going to even let him talk anymore. Coming up on this show, right, we are going to talk about the grudge match that is UFC 270 and Ngannou versus Gane. We also will get to the trilogy, Moreno versus Figueiredo.
Yeah.
And we also got to tap in and tap out. We always got to tap in and tap out.
You know it.
But Ryan, one person that didn't tap out, or they did tap in last week, was Calvin Kattar.
Absolutely.
Calvin Kattar tapped into the main event.
Yep.
And this dude showed up after a year away, and he defeated Giga Chikadze by decision. But what a performance by Calvin Kattar on Saturday night.
You know, when I think about it and I look back on it, the last vision I have of Calvin Kattar is fighting Max Holloway. And obviously he was on a roll before that fight and he was so great striking, but Max Holloway was just in a zone that night. And then Giga Chikadze, he was coming up and he had the big win over Burrell, and I was like, okay, this is different. Right, like this dude could really be one to compete, and once Max Holloway fell out of the fight, he's trying to kind of position himself to fight against Volk, and he's upset that you pick the Korean Zombie, and it almost seemed like he disrespected Calvin Kattar in a little bit, and to watch Cal come into the fight, the elbows, right, listening during the broadcast, they were saying, okay, elbows are going to be big in this fight. He took him down. To me, this is the first time we got to see Chikadze in a fight where it was a true mixed martial artist match. And I think we saw him understand that it's a little different in the octagon than it's been in some of his other organizations and some of the other ways that he's fought.
You know, for me, it was about the evolution of Calvin Kattar. And it also showed that in the time away, RC, he didn't rest on his laurels.
Yeah.
He got better. He learned from the Max Holloway fight. You know, they always say this in sport. You don't lose, you get an opportunity to get better. Calvin Kattar did that. He went back to Boston. He got to sharpening his tools. And when he went back in there on Saturday night, he was much better than he was the last time we saw him.
DC, you got to call him.
And to be
DC,
yes.
I'm interrupting you, right? I know it's Calvin Kattar, but when you say Kattar, it sounds like it gives you a little boost, man. It sounds big time, bro. Listen, like Calvin Kattar.
You know when you do that, when you go, but DC. The other day I had a weird deja vu because you did this one time when you were interviewing me when I was fighting, and I was like, I've heard this. But you had a horrible flat top at the time, and I'm glad that we have moved on from that, Ryan Clark.
What I had was called a burst fade. The fact that you cannot grow these things means that you won't go to the barber shop and ever get an opportunity to ask for one of these. But when you say the evolution, when you're talking about the evolution of Calvin Kattar, then what's next for him, DC?
You know, it's continuing to move back up the rankings. Now, we've seen him against the best, the elite of the division in Max Holloway. He didn't fare so well.
Yeah.
But the Calvin Kattar we saw on Saturday night showed improvement. Now, the one thing I think that he took the most from the previous fight was he wasn't getting pushed backwards anymore. He went in there with an idea that he was going to be the hammer opposed to being the nail, Ryan.
And he kept the pressure
in the
on
Holloway
the
fight, he was the
time.
nail.
Yeah, he kept the pressure on the entire time. It was actually relentless, and you can kind of see Chikadze kind of starting to wilt and falter under the pressure. It was kind of the first time we'd seen him in this position since being in the UFC. And now when you're Calvin Kattar and you have the microphone after the fight and you're inside the octagon, you have an opportunity to position yourself, right? To put yourself in a different spot and be able to call out your next guy, especially when your performance is so impressive against an up-and-comer in the UFC. Did Calvin Kattar miss an opportunity to set himself up for the next fight? Is there a Brian Ortega? Or can you even call for Alexander Volkanovski in the sense that, you know, he's fighting number 4 now. It's not necessarily that he's fighting the next guy up. They skipped over Yair Rodriguez. And so maybe in this sense or in this opportunity, Calvin Kattar could have put himself in those discussions.
You know what the problem with that is, Ryan? I, for a long time, have had an issue with guys not taking the initiative. You know, the guys that are the best on the microphone, you see a lot of them doing the job that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Chael Sonnen was a master at grabbing that microphone after the fight and making a statement.
Yep.
I always had something planned. Michael Chandler, when he beat Dan Hooker,
right,
had something planned, right? No matter what, in those moments, you'll never have more eyes on you than in that moment in the middle of the octagon. You got to call your shot. You have got to start to set yourself up for the next thing. I do believe Calvin Kattar missed an opportunity, but I think when you're on the receiving end of the beating that he took in the previous fight, you're almost just relieved to come back and get a victory. So if the only negative thing that we have to say about Calvin Kattar is that he didn't set up the next thing, that's a great position for Calvin Kattar to be in, because when he got hit by Max Holloway 500 times, you never knew he could be the same guy. He not only was the same guy, he was a better version.
A better fighter.
And I think this is another chance for Chikadze to learn not to look forward, because the momentum he had built allowed for him to start to say, you chose the Korean Zombie because it's an easy fight, champion. Why not me? You can't talk about why not me when you still got a tough guy like Calvin Kattar standing in front of you on Saturday night. So for a young guy like Giga, and he's not a young guy, but young in his mixed martial arts career. Yes, young in the UFC, it's an opportunity for him to learn. I got to keep my eyes solely focused on what's in front of me right now, or you end up where he is today, licking his wounds.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you have some of the impressive performances that he's had, you actually beat a guy who was a former champion, you start to feel yourself a little bit, and you think that you should deserve certain opportunities that you truly haven't earned yet. But we're starting to see this with more and more young fighters, whether it's Islam Makhachev or if it's Chimaev. These guys who are winning these fights impressively, young in their careers, are starting to be more vocal about the people we want to fight. I mean, you know, Sugar Sean O'Malley is one of the most popular fighters in the UFC, and he's a guy who's recently gotten rank. And so I think that guys like Chikadze see these people position themselves, become stars kind of even before they've earned the big fight. And I think that's just what he was trying to do. And let's be honest, when you watch kind of the mastery of Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, the last fight, you do overlook him a little bit. You do look at Max Holloway.
But you got to be Max Holloway to do that, right?
Exactly.
But you got to be Max Holloway to do that.
Right. And the whole time I'm watching Calvin Kattar this weekend fight against Chikadze, I'm thinking to myself, God dang, how good Max Holloway must be.
How good is Max Holloway?
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking that the entire time, DC, and I think that's one of those things that are crazy to me. But speaking of Max, now that Max is out of the fight with Alexander Volkanovski, you know, he moves on to fighting the Korean Zombie. And so how do you see this division with that fight upcoming, what we've seen Calvin Kattar do, obviously Ortega losing to Volk in the last fight, and then Max Holloway consistently and constantly looming, because we know who that dude is. Many people believe he's the true champion of this division. So where is this division after this fight with Volk and the Korean Zombie, and how do you see that going?
Well, that's to your point. Like, this right here almost solidifies your point. The Korean Zombie lost, not last fight, but the one prior. But it could be something so simple as a T-shirt. The Korean Zombie still has the most important T-shirt in fight history, right? He is a guy that people are drawn to. And he doesn't even speak English. He doesn't even really speak English.
Right.
But they're drawn to Chan Sung Jung. And because of that, that's why he's fighting for the title. So you understand why guys are trying to be more vocal. Because in these situations, in these moments where they look at a guy that needs to be replaced, they may go to, people know this one. People know this dude, even if the fighting doesn't match it all the time.
Right.
So it's a great fight. But this one is built on exactly what you were explaining a second ago. The Korean Zombie's #4 guy in the world, but he hasn't been a world beater lately. He got beat bad by Brian Ortega, but now he finds himself in the championship fight after winning one more fight. So that just speaks to how important your profile is in mixed martial arts today. Now, when you look at the matchup between him and the champion, it's hard to really choose anybody over the champ today because of his supremely well-rounded skill set, his cardio, his champion's mentality. Alexander Volkanovski has not lost in so long, and he is starting to make it look easier. So if you look at the Korean Zombie, he has got his work cut out for him. But Volkanovski will stand with you. And when you stand with the Zombie, you are always in danger because that guy has dynamite in his hands.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this fight exciting, right? We've seen the Korean Zombie be exciting. We've seen Alexander Volkanovski stand in front of some of the best in the world, whether it's Max Holloway, if it's Brian Ortega. This is a fighter that will not back down. He's not running, and we say it in football all the time, this dude ain't running from contact. And so anytime you have a fighter that will actually stand in the pocket, there's a possibility and sometimes a probability that they'll get caught. But we've seen Alexander Volkanovski in trouble, right? We saw him in trouble to Max Holloway. We saw him in trouble to Brian Ortega in the 3rd round. But we've always watched the champ make champ moves. And I believe that's what everybody believes about Alexander Volkanovski. But the excitement in the fight with the Korean Zombie is the explosion that's possible to happen. And I think that's on both ends. And so even if we don't get someone that can unseat the champion, we get someone that's going to push the champion. And let's be honest, bro.
And give you a great fight.
As fans, we're looking for a great fight. The winner doesn't always matter to us. It's the matter in which they fight. Like I didn't care who walked out of the octagon in Madison Square Garden as the winner between Gaethje and Chandler. What I cared about was the way those two men went to battle, and that's the type of fight we were expecting to see from Alexander Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fight. It's going to be a fun fight. You've seen the Zombie involved in so many classic fights over the course of his career, and you know that when he gets this opportunity, one that was unexpected against the champion Alexander Volkanovski, he is going to be willing to go out on his shield, so it should make for a fantastic night. Now, another fight that just got announced, RC, should be fun also. But it should not only be fun for the matchup, it should be fun for all the things that will surround it. Now, this is one I thought we may see as coaches of The Ultimate Fighter to kind of make the interactions linger. But no, we get Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal, UFC 272. How happy are you that this fight has been made finally? It's a non-title main event, something we don't see very often. And is it the right time for this fight? Or was this fight destined to happen a little bit ago when Masvidal had all that momentum, Covington had all that momentum, being that both of the guys are now coming off losses?
No, and I think it would have always been a good fight for Jorge Masvidal. I don't necessarily know if it was always the right fight for Colby Covington, and we can go through it as much as we want. Right now, Colby Covington is the 2nd best 170-pounder in the world. Like he truly is. And so when he was fighting and when he was in those conversations, it actually made no sense for him to drop down and fight a guy like Masvidal. That's in my opinion. Now, for Masvidal, it's a huge fight. You obviously have the backstory, you have the bad blood, and you would have been fighting a guy that was ranked as the #1 contender. And so I think even though we would have liked to see it at the heights of their careers, let's be honest, the dude that they've both lost to most recently is the best fighter in the world in his division, and maybe the best fighter pound for pound.
Pound for pound.
Yeah. You know, and so to me, right? that doesn't take away from this matchup. This matchup still is what it always was. Two extremely good fighters, two really, really exciting humans to watch build fights, and bad blood. That hasn't changed. The only thing we can say when these dudes fight that's going to be a negative, well, neither one of them could beat Kamaru Usman. Can't nobody else beat him, right? Don't nobody else beat him either. And so
nobody's beating him.
And so to me, this is actually kind of the perfect time for this fight, because one of these men will now again propel themselves into the consciousness of the UFC fans as a contender, and then depending on how things shake out for Kamaru Usman in 2022, maybe get another shot if somebody in Chimaev is able to unseat Kamaru Usman.
That's what's going to happen for either of these guys to fight for a championship again, especially being that they've both lost to Kamaru Usman 2 times. But the last time someone headlined a pay-per-view without a championship on the line, the BMF title was created for Masvidal versus Diaz. Those guys fought. Masvidal was the champion. This fight, I don't think needs a championship. But does the BMF title, does that title add a little something to the pay-per-view when these two fight? Now, when you look at these two, right? When you look at these guys fight, obviously McGregor, Poirier, that trilogy, those last 2 fights weren't for championships and they main evented. But the last time anyone but McGregor main evented a pay-per-view, it was Masvidal versus Diaz, and the BMF title was on the line. I think stylistically for Colby Covington, this is a great fight.
Yes.
Because he feels like he can go and ground Jorge Masvidal out. A lot of people believe, people from within the sport of mixed martial arts think that it's going to look like Robbie Lawler versus Colby Covington, where Colby is just trying to overwhelm him with his pressure. But what you don't understand is the improvements that Jorge Masvidal has made in the wrestling. His ability to counter a lot of the things that Covington may have been able to do to him in years past. The guy is a much better fighter today, and he's a much better fighter because of his interactions with Kamaru Usman.
Yeah.
Even though he lost those fights, he got better preparing for the champion. When they were training together before, he was just a guy that had won a lot, but had also lost a lot. Now he had a guy that has lived and tried to attain championships.
Yes.
And that changes you. And I think Jorge Masvidal today is better. Is that good enough to beat Colby Covington? I don't know. But I do believe that this is a fight that can headline a pay-per-view. And this is a fight that even without the BMF title will sell a lot of pay-per-views, and both of these guys will make a ton of money.
You know, I absolutely agree with that, and I'm just excited. I'm excited to watch it. These are 2 really good fighters, and I think sometimes that's lost in their banter, right? That's lost in the way that they deal.
That's the crazy thing, though, right, RC? Isn't that crazy, RC, that we are living in a world now today where 2 really good fighters just ain't enough? It's almost like we got to see the great fighters.
Right.
We're so spoiled.
Right.
We're so spoiled with seeing these great fighters that when you look at 2 great fighters in their own right, just maybe not the best in the world fight, people are like, well, is it pay-per-view worthy? Dude, there was a time where guys didn't have championships and were headlining pay-per-views.
Right.
They weren't half the fighters that Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington are today. But boy, we're spoiled, aren't we, RC?
Hey.
We are living in a spoiled world as MMA fans.
Hey man, we absolutely are, but that's what's fun about the way that this sport has ascended, though, right? Is that we do have stars now, and a lot of times those stars are attached to championship belts. But to me, even more than championship belts, DC, they're attached to championship moments. You know, it's not necessarily just the fact that you walk out of the octagon as the champ, right? With that designation, it's the way that you get it. Right? It's the things that you will have to overcome. And a lot of times, it's the opponent you have to overcome. The fact that Juliana Pena is now the champion, like, that's cool, right? But it's the fact that she's the champion because she submitted Amanda Nunes. It's those championship moments that make people transcend in your mind.
Your girl Amanda Nunes is leaving American Top Team now. I read an article yesterday. The last time she lost, the whole time she's going to open her own spot, which is great, but Amanda doesn't deal well with losing. She leaves her team every single time. The last time she lost to Ngannou, she left her team.
Yeah.
Now she's leaving ATT. No room for error whenever you're coaching Amanda Nunes, because she will kick you to the curb. And guess what? Athletes got to be selfish, right, RC? They got to put themselves above all. So now she's going to take everything in her own hands and be responsible for her own career, which hats off to Amanda. But as we talk about two former training partners now being scheduled to fight, that seems to be the theme, because this weekend we have the same thing. The heavyweights will be locked into the octagon in Anaheim. Francis Ngannou will be fighting against Ciryl Gane. This is the third heavyweight unification title fight. Brock Lesnar fought Frank Mir. Brock Lesnar won. Brock Lesnar fought Shane Carwin. Brock Lesnar won. The only time an interim champion has won was when Fabricio Verdum beat my guy Cain Velasquez in Mexico City 2015. When you look at this one, and you look at these two behemoths, how excited are you to see Francis and Ciryl finally mix it up in the pond out in Anaheim?
Man, I think this is absolutely phenomenal. This is something that the sport needed. And I believe that Dana White understood that. That's why we have an interim title. We have an interim title because it continues to build the tension for this match. We obviously know that Ciryl Gane is a world-class fighter. Francis Ngannou is the champion and can put your lights out in any second. But now that you have an interim champ and a heavyweight champ, you understand the backstory of the fact that these guys, started in the same place. Francis Ngannou left. Now Francis Ngannou is dealing with, okay, if I win this fight, now I have the championship side of my deal. There's so much that continues to go into this fight, but in the end, it's going to be two world-class fighters, two of the baddest men in the entire world stepping into the octagon to put it down, bro, to like flat out go at it. And we're going to see the best of the best the UFC has to offer, because ain't nobody beating these two dudes. Like whoever wins this fight is the baddest man in the world. If they drop down to 205 and fight Glover Teixeira, they gonna beat him. They drop down to 185 and fight Izzy, they gonna beat him. 170, Kamaru, beat him. And so what I'm saying is, this is for the baddest man in the world. This is the real BMF, bro. This is the real I'm the dude. And so you have to be excited about that, and excited that both of these men have the skill to push one another, and also both of these men have an opportunity to end this fight at any single time.
You just say crazy stuff every single week. You just literally want people to get mad at you. Go down and beat Glover, go beat Izzy, go beat Kamaru. Like, dog, you don't have to just say that.
Why is it crazy though?
Okay,
DC,
because it's already understood.
But DC, you act like I said I can beat him up. I can't beat up nobody in the UFC.
No, RC, I'm sweating.
Like,
every time you get me
I can't
sweating.
beat Brandon Moreno
RC.
in a fight or Legos. You know what I'm saying? Like,
RC, no,
not me,
because
guys.
it's stated, right? The heavyweight champ is the baddest man on the planet. You don't have to tell all these other bad men that they get beat up by the heavyweight champion, right? You just don't have to say it. Hey, Ryan, Troy Polamalu, right? Look at that. Look at that smile on his face. Look at that. Troy Polamalu was the hardest hitter in the NFL, right? Was he not?
No, I actually hit harder than Troy at that.
So then what was Troy? Was Troy Polamalu the best safety in the NFL?
Absolutely, 100%. 100%.
Did anybody have to keep telling Troy Polamalu that? I didn't need to go to you and say, Ryan, Troy Polamalu is the best safety, or the next guy, or the next guy. You just telling all of these dudes that think they're the baddest man. But you want to tell them how bad the heavyweight and how bad the heavyweight put it on them. Dude, let me tell you something. You don't have to make more enemies, bro. But it's okay. I will let you continue to do that yourself.
Here's what's crazy. You didn't have to point that out, though. Right? Like, I could have said it and we could have moved on, but you're trying to gain friends, right? You want Glover to be your friend. You want Israel Adesanya to be your friend. Kamaru Usman to be your friend, right?
I do.
Right. You want Charles Oliveira to be your friend. Alexander Volkanovski, because you're scared of all the champs. Right? It ain't my fault. It ain't my fault that I ain't gonna jump if Nate Diaz is at me.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. I've got a message for you from Nate Diaz, but I can't really say it on air. But Nate Diaz did. Nate Diaz did tell me to send you a message.
Okay.
I will definitely text it to you. But I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot, but I cannot repeat on air what Nate Diaz told me to tell you, dog. It's crazy, but let's get to the heavyweight title. Wow, I am sweating profusely right now. Look at my face. This is absolutely crazy.
Is it hot over there, DC?
Guys, they are getting at ESPN Los Angeles. They got me in this room. It is so hot, you would not believe it. But Ryan, in terms of the heavyweights, the matchup, Ngannou, unbelievably powerful. Ciryl Gane, tremendously talented. What he has done in 10 fights is unheard of. Nobody gets to be the heavyweight champion of the world in any fashion at 10-0. Ciryl Gane has not made any mistakes. When you look at the matchup, man, it seems as though it's a great matchup for Ciryl. And I got to be honest, man, I've heard whispers that all the things that Francis is dealing with outside of the actual fight may be taking its toll a little bit mentally. I'm not sure, but we will see. I know that Francis Ngannou is a man, and he is going to fight in any circumstance. He's got the ultimate equalizer, but he has got to be locked in if he is going to keep his championship after Saturday night.
No, you're absolutely right, man. And I'm excited to see Francis Ngannou lock in, and also what game plan Ciryl Gane has. He's always seemed to have a better game plan than his opponent.
Yep.
We can't necessarily say that about Francis, because sometimes it's about, I'm going to stand in front of you. I think I'm a better man than you are, and the power takes over. And so
bigger, badder.
Right? So I'm excited.
When you're bigger and you're badder, you're like, hey, we can do this.
Yes.
You're going to fall before I'm going to fall.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's how Francis approaches it.
Yeah, well, we started with who? Rosenstrike, I believe it was. Alistair Overeem.
Yep.
You know, we've seen him stand in front of men that were bad men.
Yo, remember what he did to Alistair?
Bro.
Oh, my God.
Bro, yo, we got to jump him, DC. If he do me that, me and you got to jump him, bro. We got to jump him, dog.
Dog, did you see what? Oh, my goodness. If he do that to me, we got to catch him somewhere and get him, because that was crazy what he did to Overeem.
Speaking of getting people, DC, we're going to have a draft. What I'm asking you to do in this draft of top KO artists in combat sports, so it could be UFC, boxing, Ultimate Frog Championship, chess fighting, whatever it is, we're going to pick our 5. It's a draft, right? So it's a snake draft. I go, then you go, I go. So that's how it works, all right? Corporate Jake, let's start it off.
When did you're first?
So as Ryan said, this will be a snake draft. Once a fighter is picked, that fighter is no longer eligible to be drafted. We will go 5 rounds. So to start off round 1, Ryan Clark, you're on the clock.
At number 1, Iron Mike Tyson.
Of course, you take Tyson. Yes,
well,
of course he would take Tyson.
If there is anyone in the modern era of fighting who is synonymous with knockouts, that is Mike Tyson. That is my explanation.
Yes.
The end.
You're right. That's right. You get a Mike Tyson, you take him first in a draft about power. So it's time for me to make my first pick. My first pick, I'm actually going to take the heavyweight champion of the world, Francis Ngannou. I'm going to take Francis Ngannou as my number 1 pick, because what I have seen him do to people in the mixed martial arts, to people inside of the octagon, it's unheard of. They just found Alistair Overeem's head from that uppercut a few years ago. He knocked out Stipe Miocic with his offhand. The way that he can put people to sleep, truly, truly crazy. And I take Francis Ngannou as my most powerful knockout puncher of all time.
So DC, you up. You got to go again.
DC with your 2nd round pick.
Oh, it's me?
He's not even ready.
Okay.
He's not even ready,
You know what
guys.
I'm going to take? No, I'm telling you, what I'm going to take? I didn't think I was going to get to go second, but I'm going to take the heavyweight champ, the guy that is calling out Francis Ngannou, because I have seen him put people to sleep for years. I'm taking Tyson Fury. The way that he knocks people out, the way that he put Deontay Wilder out, Tyson Fury is so big and powerful. He can shut your lights out in no time. Now, Ryan, here's my thing when I think about power, especially in boxing. It's not always about the guy that just puts you out with one punch. It's his ability to set you up, put you in a spot to end your night. Tyson Fury does that better than anyone.
At number 2, I'm going to go with Derek Lewis, right? Most knockouts. in the UFC. Right, this is a dude, and listen, Derek Lewis ain't really winning fights no other way, DC. We not walking into fights being like, oh, we can't wait to see Derek Lewis get into the ground game and submit and show us that great black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu. We're not like, oh my goodness, let's watch some of this Khabib Nurmagomedov grappling. No, Derek Lewis is coming into the fight. He is standing in front of you, and he is putting your lights out at number 3 because it's my team, my turn again. Now listen to this. I need you to listen carefully. And when the graphic is made, Corporate Jake, I needed to have in parentheses the second part of what I say. I'm going at number 3, Kimbo Slice in the streets. Or Kimbo Slice,
You're tripping.
the street fighter.
You're absolutely tripping. You're absolutely tripping. You're tripping. You're tripping. You can't put, sorry, bro. Hey, knock on wood. Knock on wood.
God rest your soul.
You know, R.I.P. to the great Kimbo Slice. Man, you cannot put Kimbo Slice on the list of greatest knockout punches. Next thing you know, you're going to say Jake Paul. If you say Jake Paul, I mean,
you see it?
you might as well say Jake Paul at this point.
Hey, DC, straight up. Would you want to see Kimbo in the street with them hands where you can't wrestle him?
Bro, come on. But Ryan, come on, man. Kimbo Slice. Ryan, you tripping, man. Come on, Ryan, you know better than that, man.
No,
Ryan, you know better than that, man.
No, straight up. No, when they post this graphic, are all the UFC fans gonna kill me? Absolutely. Oh, you casual. You don't know nothing. Bro, I used to sit and watch those YouTube videos on repeat, dog. The man knocked somebody's eye out, DC. He knocked his whole eye out. Now, that guy was extremely tough because he was laughing about it. Bro, we ain't laughing after you knock my whole eyeball out. That man was eyeball hanging, bro.
I understand.
Your turn.
I understand. My turn. Big George himself, George Foreman. Dude, I trained with George Foreman before I went back to fighting my last couple fights, and I watched him hit the bag. At his age today, the way he makes impact, Ryan, his hands are so big. The way that he punches that bag, and the way that he did the great Joe Frazier. Do you remember him making Joe Frazier do the chicken dance?
I do.
It's one thing to make somebody do the chicken dance, but it's another thing to do it to Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
The way that he did Joe Frazier, man, unbelievable. My man, Big George Foreman. People know him for the grills.
The grill,
But you gotta remember, at 45, he knocked out Michael Moore to become the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing history. So yes, for me, Big George Foreman. You want to know who's my next one? Manos de Piedra, Roberto Duran.
Good
hands
call.
of stone. Roberto
Good
Duran,
call,
hands of
DC.
stone. For a light guy, hey Ryan, for a light guy,
Monster.
he would put people out. Roberto Duran, for me, they told me go quick, but Manos de Piedra, hands of stone, Roberto Duran.
So at number 4, you mentioned him and you try to kind of throw shade at him, but mine is Joe Frazier. The wars that he had,
he's the man.
The wars that he had with Muhammad Ali, that left hook, I mean, just absolutely phenomenal. And at number 5, DC, and yes, you can use this, number 5, Clubber Lang from Rocky 3. Yes, that's it.
Dude, you're tripping. You actually just picked Mr. T. Did you really just pick Mr. T?
Clubber Lang.
I done pulled. Dog, you actually picked Mr. T? Like, you're tripping. Like, at this point, you're trying to let me win You're trying to let me win this draft. Like, because that is madness. How you gonna pick Mr. T?
Hey, man, the dude had hands, bro. Bro. Can I also go slash? Can I go slash Ivan Drago? Ivan Drago killed Apollo, bro. Can we? Corporate Jake slash Ivan Drago.
I was sad.
Rocky 4.
I was so sad.
Yeah,
I was so sad.
Yeah, that's my number 5,
I was
though.
so sad when he killed Apollo.
That's my number 5.
No, when he killed Apollo, I was so sad. I've never been so sad in the movie than when he killed Apollo, because
if he dies,
Apollo
he
was
dies.
acting a fool on his way to the ring.
Living in
when
America.
Apollo was on his way to the ring and James Brown, oh my goodness, it was literally one of my favorite movie scenes ever.
Look
Can
at
I do my
that
last
list.
one? Because now that is insane. And you also got 6. But let me just add the last one for some clarity to tell people that we are not just messing around. Vladimir Klitschko. The older Klitschko, the younger Klitschko. Vitaly was the older Klitschko. Vladimir, 6'6", 250. The 1-2 that he had, especially when he went with Emmanuel Stewart. When Emmanuel Stewart started training him, the way Emmanuel taught him to throw the right hand behind the jab, it was a thing of beauty. He was knocking people out. He held the belt for years and years and years until he ran into who? Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury.
Nobody could beat Vladimir Klitschko, right, until he ran into Tyson Fury. So my last one is going to be Vladimir Klitschko. You remember Shannon Briggs used to chase him all around? Let's go, champ. You eating, champ? I want to eat, champ. I want to eat, champ. What you doing, champ? You on the boat, champ? I want to eat.
Bro, look at
but
my list.
This is the right list.
My list is so much
This
better
is a great
than yours,
list.
bro.
Dog, your list is actually ridiculous. It just says slice streets. Like, who slices the streets? Cobra Jake. I mean, come on. Kimbo slicing the streets. Mike Tyson, Derek Lewis, Joe Frazier, Clubber Lang, and Ivan Drago. This dude has lost his mind.
Bro, tell me this, though.
Fury, Foreman, Duran, Klitschko.
Tell me this.
Let's go.
When I picked Ivan Drago, that's what made you think of Klitschko, right or wrong? Right or wrong?
What? What'd you say?
When I picked Ivan Drago, that's what made Klitschko jump into your head. Because you was like, if there was a real life Ivan Drago, it'll be Klitschko. Man. I found this. RC. False. I think this is false. False. That is not what made me think about Vladimir Klitschko. I found this here at the ESPN Los Angeles studios. False and true. False. False. Whatever, man.
But you know what is true? You know what is true, Ryan? Brandon Moreno and Deiveson Figueiredo will fight for the third time this weekend in Anaheim. The trilogy. Brandon Moreno and Figueiredo had an all-time classic in the first fight. The second fight, Moreno may have had the greatest performance as a challenger in a title fight that I have ever seen. I think of Rafael Dos Anjos against Benson Henderson as a challenger. Conor McGregor when he knocked out Jose Aldo, obviously. But Moreno's performance in Arizona was on par with that. How do you see this fight this weekend taking place? And how excited are you that Moreno gets to fight Deuce Tigueira, Deiveson Figueiredo, for the third time in Anaheim?
I think this fight goes differently than both of the first fights. I can't see Brandon Moreno dominating the way he did in the second fight, submitting Deiveson Figueiredo. But I do think that Brandon Moreno wins. It's something when I watched the first fight, and that's when I was really first kind of not introduced to Deiveson Figueiredo, but it was the Figueiredo. But the fights leading up to that was when I really learned about him and started to kind of dive deep into who he was. And dude's just a flat-out monster. And then you see this nice guy, Brandon Moreno, walk into the ring smiling and happy, and he has the whole, the set where he's walking in like this, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be over quick. And he absorbed punishment in that fight, DC. And not only absorbed punishment, but stayed the course, stayed with his skill, continued to pressure, continued to move forward. And in the second fight, he overwhelmed him from the beginning of the fight until the rear naked choke. And so I think that he has an understanding that he is not only as good or as tough as Deiveson is, that he's tougher and that he's better. And I think he wins this fight again, but I believe we get some of the first fight's excitement, especially early, from Deiveson Figueiredo, who I know will be trying to prove a point that he is the true champion.
Especially with him moving over to Arizona, training with Henry Cejudo. Regardless of what you think of Henry Cejudo, he's a weird little guy. He can be annoying, but he does understand how to win, and he can train fighters to get to the next level. Let's see what his impact is on Figueiredo. Now, Figueiredo's a brute, right? That's what made people start to really take notice, because he was knocking out people at 125 pounds. Who does that? He knocked out Joseph Benavidez bad in Abu Dhabi to win the championship after he knocked him out the first time but didn't make weight, so he didn't get the belt.
Right.
So the guy's an absolute brute. And when you saw Moreno stand up to that, when you saw him withstand
that boy
all
ready
the
to roll.
pressure, you were like, wow, this kid's good. Look at how ripped up this dude is. This dude
look
is
like you,
ripped,
DC.
Training down in back in the day. You know what I'm saying, right? Back in the day. Well, sometimes I still look like that.
Well, you got hair.
I have hair, beautiful hair. But this guy is a fantastic fighter. He's a very talented fighter. But in the last fight, Moreno showed fighting behind that beautiful jab, really setting the tempo in the pace of the fight. that if he stays within himself, Deiveson has trouble dealing with him.
Yep.
And I think he picked that up in the first fight. He was able to withstand the avalanche.
Yeah.
He was able to take the power. He was able to land things. And if there was any hesitancy on his part in fight 1, by the time they got locked into the octagon in the second fight, it was all gone. And he pitched an absolute shutout to submit Deiveson Figueiredo in the way that he did. Figueiredo's the one behind the 8 ball now, RC, because he and Henry Cejudo and that team, they had to do some real work to try to close the gap on the assassin baby.
Like, isn't that crazy, though? That Deiveson Figueiredo had to do work to close the gap on Brandon Moreno when he was fighting. Deiveson Figueiredo was fighting at such a high level. I'm telling you, going into that fight, I just knew that the power would be too much for Brandon Moreno to withstand. And it wasn't that he never tasted it. It wasn't that he never had to absorb that punishment. He just did. And he kept moving forward. And that was when you saw that he not only had the heart of a champion, but the chin of a champion, the skill of a champion. And as you said, the next fight, he pitched the shutout until Deiveson Figueiredo tapped out through the submission. But you know what, DC? You got something to say? Go ahead.
What was that?
I was about to tap in, tap out.
I'm just saying, for a guy, just one quick thing. For Brandon Moreno, RC, and we've seen this with these athletes, a guy, Mexican kid, grew up down there in Tijuana. You saw the mural drawn of him the day after he won the championship. To go through all that he went through, being outside of the UFC, getting cut, going to the Ultimate Fighter, was the last pick when they picked the teams. To have that opportunity, and then to have it a second time, you knew, Ryan. You knew that he would take full advantage of it. And now as a champion, his confidence is sky high. Now let's get to your segment, my man. It's your segment.
Hey, it's time to tap in or tap out. DC, let's get our boy Corporate Jake back in here for the 2022, because you know I was listening to that juvie that took over for the 9-9 in the 2000s.
I heard it. I can't believe you still got it in you, RC. I really can't. Don't let the preacher college fool you. Corporate Jake.
All right, guys. Number 2 ranked welterweight Gilbert Burns is pleading to Dana White for a main event fight in Brazil against Khamzat Chimaev. DC, tap in or tap out on Burns versus Khamzat being the next fight for both men.
I tap in. I tap all the way in. Burns Chimaev in Brazil. Gilbert will test him in ways that he has not been tested. Also a 5-round main event. And will also tell us if Chimaev's ready to take the next step. Ryan, you predicted that he would be fighting for the championship in this year. I said maybe he'd be the one contender looking at 23. He beats Gilbert Burns, he will definitely fight for the championship in 2022.
Absolutely. And that's why I tap in. I know sometimes, and many people are going to think this is a fast track for Chimaev. And really it is when you get an opportunity to fight someone who's as established as Gilbert Burns. But we constantly have the conversations of, is Chimaev ready right now? And this will let us know if he comes in and he dominates this fight, or if he's taken to deep water and ends up beating Gilbert Burns. We know that he's a guy that's on not only on the path, but ready to challenge the champion, Kamaru Usman.
Could you imagine if he dominates Gilbert Burns? Could you imagine the windstorm that will blow?
It will be so scary.
It will be crazy if he dominates Gilbert Burns in the way that he has to this point. This is an absolute have-to-have matchup between these two. Corporate Jake.
RC, we know you're always dressed to the nines, but have you ever thought about fighting while looking sharp? Tap in or tap out on fighting in dress clothes.
Oh!
First off, tap in. I'm tapping in first off, and here's why I'm tapping in, DC. I have fought dressed up before, so this wouldn't be nothing new to me. Like I've thrown hands in hard bottom shoes. I am not tripping at all.
Really?
This is real men wear pink and real men fighting hard bottoms. I am tapping all the way in this. Absolutely, DC. The clothes. Listen, the clothes don't make the fighter. The fighter makes the clothes. Let's go.
Where is it? It's like, it kind of looks like I don't know, man. It looks like in the middle of a big tent somewhere. They're slipping and sliding all over the place. It's better to be in no shoes than in dress shoes when you're fighting. It's dangerous, and this is an absolute mismatch. I don't know who's the matchmaker for this organization.
There's no weight classes. No
the
weight.
one big dude was just beating the crap out of the little dude.
Hey, bro, you know what this
I'm
look
gonna
like?
tap out.
This look
I'm tapping out. It's too slippery.
This look like when the dudes on Peaky Blinders fights. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's a Peaky Blinders fight for sure. Absolutely. Here we go. Dress shoe fighting. I love it.
All right, guys, one more. You guys talked about the First Take interview from years back. Well, we were able to find it, so let's take a look.
DC, I'm a Louisiana boy, so I'm a huge fan. I'm a big fan, and I followed your career. I've watched you fight heavyweight and knock out guys much bigger than you. I remember the epic battle with the Mauler. I've seen you taste leather for Rumble Johnson and then submit him. But John Jones was the biggest challenge you faced. What makes you confident that this time can be different than the first fight that you guys had?
You know what, man? I just kind of, I've gotten better. You know, I have improved in every facet of mixed martial arts. Last fight, Ryan, I was super emotional as I went to the octagon. All I wanted to do was fight with John Jones. I was so mad. I didn't really go into the octagon to compete. I've been competing since I was a really young boy all around the world in wrestling. When I'm in a competitive environment, I am very good at it. But just fighting, I'm not so good. I learned that down in Louisiana, Ryan. You know, you get in street fights, and you don't win them all. But it's too emotional. If I want to fight John Jones, that doesn't have to be confined to me in the octagon. You know, I can go and walk up to him and just smack him if I need to just smack him.
All right, guys.
My boy, you've been holding. Look at that.
Tap in or tap out on Ryan Clark's hairstyle.
Tap in. That joint was fire.
Dude. No, dog. I'm tapping out. Hey, Ryan, I'm tapping out on your hairstyle. I'm tapping out on my missing tooth in the front.
Hey, like, missing tooth fire.
Ryan, look at it.
I love that missing tooth, DC.
We both just, and look how skinny I was. What the heck was going on? Fighting,
DC,
dude, what is happening?
You look good, DC.
No, I don't. I look better right now. I feel good. I feel full. I feel more like a Louisiana boy. Hey, RC, you ain't the only. I'm not the only one think I look better right now. You know, guys, just know that women in Louisiana love me. The Ryan Clark's wife's friend saw me immediately and goes, "Oh, he's cute." Ryan Clark don't even. His wife's friend was out of the way. His wife's friend right away was like, "Yo, DC is so cute." Ryan got him a good co-host this time. So Ryan, let's go. Don't think anything that we say in our text messages stay secret because it goes to DC.
My wife is gonna kill me. Oh my gosh. Hey, I tell you what, I am tapping out. I am tapping out on DC's missing tooth. I am tapping in on my haircut. DC's only hating because his cannot grow.
Hey, dog.
And that's
it looked bad. It looked bad. It looked nappy too. It looked nappy.
It was twisted.
Why did it look so nappy? No, it looked nappy bad.
Because you got to
put it back up, guys. Put it back up.
Sponge, and you use the sponge like this.
That's nappy.
That is not
nappy. Look at my boy.
Look at that edge, man.
Let's take mine off. Let's take my picture off. Let's take my picture off. Because I look weird as heck.
Skinny with that missing tooth in your mouth. Hey, I'll tell you what. Hey, you look like
Ryan.
You look like Benny from the block. That's what you look like.
Right, I look like one of them dudes off the Water Boy. I look like I was playing in the Water Boy movie as one of the extras, with that, looking all sick in the face with no tooth in the middle. But RC, why it look so nappy though? It looked real nappy. I like this better. I prefer you brushing your hair now to that nappy snoo you had. It was nappy. It looked bad.
Can we
it
talk
looked
about
real
the
bad.
Fights this week? Hey, everybody, lock in. We got fights this week. They're going to be real heavyweights, not skinny heavyweights like DC was. They're going to be throwing. Hey, we got grudge matches. We're so glad you came back with us and you tapped in and you tapped out. I learned how to say Calvin Kattar.
We missed y'all.
DC was hating on me.
We missed y'all.
Good. I played music for him. You don't know what Donnie Hathaway is.
Ryan, we missed him. We missed you guys, and obviously you guys missed us. Thank you for tuning in to the show last week. We're here every single Tuesday, getting into it as we do, but also going down memory lane and looking at Ryan with that haircut and me with the missing tooth. Hey, Doug, we've glowed up though. We kind of glowed up a little bit. They call it a glow up. We kind of glowed up a little bit. Guys, make sure you tune in every single week. New episode of DC and RC is in your life next Tuesday. Till next time, peace.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.